When I get hired for a job, it's a script, it's sometimes the director, sometimes not, and it's 30 scenes that need to be conceived, conceptualized, pitched, budgeted, drawn out, sketch up, built, and on set. So I come in the process of, we have this script and we sold it. It's a paranormal type show, but go. And so I then have to come up with big mood boards and packets and cool drawings and research. And then essentially I have to pitch this whole world visually to the director, to the network, so they can sign off, pitch it to the executives, to the showrunner, and say, this is how, working with the director and working with the writer, this is how we see this show looking. And you sit there and you go, please love it, please just love it. And they do, and they say, we love this, go for it. And now the hard part starts, where you then, those are all just images that you pulled off of Google Image or you got out of a book or something like that. Now you have to figure out, where's the location that we're shooting this? How much budget do we have to build this as a set? So we're building the sets, we're painting them, we're scenicking them, we're getting them shot, we're striking them, we're moving on to the next thing. We're doing it within a budget, and a crazy time constraint. Like, you would think when people watch shows and they hear, they had a $100 million budget, that's nothing, because what they want is a $300 million looking project, but they'll give you $100 million. So that's sort of the craziness of my life.
How do you accomplish that, though? So you've had a proposal accepted, and then you're given a budget that, realistically you shouldn't be able to provide that for that amount of money. What do you do?
It's all about the team. So without the art department, I'm sort of like a guy with some ideas and a moleskin and can pitch ideas and go like that a lot. But when I start a project, I hire my art director, my set decorator, my graphic designer, my set designer, prop master, graphic designers, scenic artists, researchers, coordinators who keep track of the budget. So all of those people together, when you look at the credits of the art department, when all of those people come together, it's me going, I have this great idea, and here's a sketch of the pirate shanty on Key and Peele, and we'll have some barrels, and there'll be some burlap, and we'll put it like this. And then my art director and set designer is taking that and putting it into SketchUp and figuring out, okay, here's how it's going to be built, here's the elements we need, here's how it breaks apart. The set decorator is finding all the pieces of dressing that are going on it. The scenic painters and the construction guys are building it and making it all happen. The lead men and the construction crew are taking it to stage and building it. The scenic painters are coming in and adding aging, and special effects is adding cobweb. And then lighting shows up, and then the director shows up, and then the costumes show up. So we're ahead of the game. We're ahead of everybody else, so that when they come to set at 7 a.m., everything's there and ready to go and ready to be shot. So to answer your question, it takes my team on any given show. Like Key and Peele, I had 30 people in the art department. On Ghosted, maybe 35, 40. There's shows that I've done for Amazon where there's been 75 people in the art department. And every single person has a extreme skill of what they do and what they bring to the table. So I don't do it alone.
Something like Key and Peele must be a particular challenge, because every location is completely different, totally different world. Every 5 minutes?
Yeah, every 3.5 minutes for a sketch.
Yeah. So how do you do all of that in such a short amount of time?
So on Key and Peele, when I would start a season, they would have 80 sketches already written, and so it was a binder this big, and within every sketch there was 3 or 4 scenes. So that, I'm not good at math, but that's a lot of stuff that you're going to do in 7 weeks. So we would shoot an entire season, 86 sketches of Key and Peele in 7 weeks, sometimes 6. And so what you would do is you would do tons of research. You start doing all the drawings. You get the budgets approved, and we would go to a sound stage. And if you can imagine a big sound stage, and I would build 5 of those sets in one sound stage. So in the morning, you'd shoot the aerobics workout. And then after lunch, you'd move and you'd shoot Obama and Luther. And then that's Monday. Tuesday, those sets are now struck and being brought back to the shop, and we're shooting the next 2. And then we'd go out and shoot on a location, and then we'd come back in. So the way it was done was they didn't get more than they needed. It was, they got what we could afford, but what we could afford we made look as cinematic. And like we just pretended we were working on Wonder Woman or Game of Thrones, but instead of like a massive Wonder Woman, it's like the Wonder Woman set was 30 feet long. That's it. That's all you got. And it looks great, but no bigger.
How much collaboration and guidance do you have with the director and the creators that you're working with? Yeah?
Tons. So on Key and Peele, the director's name was Peter Atencio, and he was sort of the brainchild of the look of Key and Peele. So at that time, when you thought of sketch comedy shows, you thought, it doesn't matter what it looks like. They could be ugly as long as they're funny. And Peter's vision was, I am going to make a sketch comedy show that looks like features. And brought the team on of DPs and costume designers and production designers and all these people who had the same aesthetic and belief in that. And don't get me wrong, it's a fight. Don't forget, when you're starting a TV show, it's very easy for the network to say, well, we're not going to give you a lot of budget, we're not going to give you a lot of time, and it doesn't matter what it looks like as long as it's funny. And we're like, it can be funny and it can be badass. And so when you watch Key and Peele, it's really the director and the DP and costumes and the production designer and the writing saying, we're not working on a sketch comedy show. We're working on, a feature. To answer your question, it's very much comes from the top, and once you have permission from your boss, you run with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And production design is one of those sort of categories of the Oscars, right? That your average viewer at home goes, I don't know what that is.
Right.
What would you say is the most...
By the way, they're having so much more fun at this Cyber Bowl.
So loud.
Yeah, but that's okay. We can let's. By the way, what we should do is we should just
laugh.
All of a sudden, like 3, 2, 1, laugh really hard. Everybody watch. Yeah, we should do it. Ready? 3, 2, 1. See?
Nobody cared.
Oh, and really your shot. Okay.
So. Because production design is a sort of thing that the sort of average viewer doesn't quite understand, what would you say is the most important aspect of it that you think that the average viewer would benefit from understanding? Okay,
yeah, well, I mean, the truth is, I've been doing this for so long, nobody knows what I do. When I go to a barbecue or a party or I see family, what does the art department do? Why? I thought all those sets existed. So when you hear someone say, or when you're watching a movie or a TV show, and you're like, oh, that must have existed where they're shooting. Not only doesn't exist and didn't exist before they shot that day, but 9 times out of 10, it's a set on a soundstage because every wall that you see needs to come away and the crew needs to go there and shoot that shot, and then that wall needs to come back in. They need to pull that wall, the camera needs to go over there and shoot this way. So what the art department does is they take a script that says interior house, they visualize it, they get it approved, they build it, they dress it, they shoot it, they strike it, and then they're on to the next set the next day. And without the art department, everybody would be standing around on an empty soundstage. So that's what the art department does.
So I'm curious about something in your industry with the rise of CGI. How do you balance the practical sets versus CGI?
Well,
because I would think, isn't CGI a little easier if they say, to revise it? Isn't it a bit easier to change the code around than to have to scrap and build from?
Right. Well, about 5 years I was worried about. 5 years ago I was worried about that. I thought, I'm a production designer who builds sets out of wood and luan and paint and like builds practical things, and I thought that maybe CGI was something that was going to hurt my industry. And the truth is, all it does is enhance the vision that we've already created. So for example, on a show like Ghosted that's coming up this fall, or Key and Peele, or Workaholics, or any of the shows that I do, I still have to come up with the design. We still have to build the foundation, figure out the colors, figure out the palette, figure out what the look will be. We have to still build what the actors are interacting with, the foreground. So if someone in the VFX department says, you can build a set that's 30 feet and it all comes out of your mind and it looks amazing, and I can come in and post and make it 300 feet, that just makes me look better. Because you're watching it at home or in the movie theater and you don't know where my job ended and what was real and what was CGI in post. And so I work closely with all the VFX departments, and it's sort of like a bit of a hot potato of like, do you want to do it or do I want to build it? And it'll go back and forth, like, should we build? So quickly, do we have time? I could tell you a quick story. So in Ghosted, which is a new show on Fox that premieres in October, there's a scene in the trailer that's online now where the guy takes his head off and they run around with the decapitated head. And the script says they peer into a room and a man removes his head. Then it says they run down the hallway holding the head while it's screaming. So we had dozens of meetings with the VFX department and the art department to figure out who is doing what. Now, if you're lazy, you could say, well, let VFX do it. But the art department wants to have their say too. So what happened was we cast the guy, we did a mold of his head, we figured out how the lighting would all come out of the bottom of his head, we figured out that we would build a table like this and cut a hole in it, and the actor could be inside for the scenes that he needed to be, old school, like Houdini style, and there's a head talking on the thing. But then when they pick it up, it's CGI, right? But then when they're running with it, we put the actor in a green screen suit. He was kneeling on a dolly. Adam Scott was running with him while he was screening. And VFX, what do? They paint out the body, they paint out the dolly, and it looks amazing. So to me, it's a hand-in-hand collaborative thing where it makes the art department look good and we make VFX look good.
And that's a very creative and practical solution to what would be a very complicated problem on paper. That's great.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so that's sort of my life.
So as a production designer of the Angry Birds movie, I worked really closely with the directors and the producers to select the visual stylings and settings to tell the story. Through drawings and paintings, my team and I create the characters and the environments for the film. So I'm on the film from the very early, once the script is written, to the very end of production. So I really get to see the film evolve and end product.
So how is the game, how has the film adapted the look of the game and sort of evolved it for the new medium?
Well, that was one of the biggest challenges, was taking this recognizable brand and then creating a movie that is fresh but still true to the brand. In the game, the characters are these really simple bouncing balls, and the storyline is very simple itself. So we knew that these characters had to emote, and they had to be characters that the audience want to go see. So that we gave them legs, and they walk, and they talk, and they have real feathers. So we use elements from the game, like the balloons, trampolines, TNT crates, to create the world. And the biggest, my most favorite part of designing the world was designing the pigs versus the birds. The pigs are these very organic animals, and everything that they make is from the land, and the pigs are man-made. So everything there is, they have electricity and different
the birds
types of material. The pigs.
The pigs, right.
Yeah, the pigs, the birds are the organic ones.
Right.
So, and they're flightless birds, so they build everything kind of horizontally, where the pigs they're the exact opposite. They're not smart creatures. They're very illogical, and so they build their structures very vertically, and it falls over. So it reckons back to the game of the game's all about knocking things over, and we wanted to bring that gameplay into the film. So we thought about deconstruction before construction when we built the buildings for Piggy Island.
Are there any little details in the film that fans of the game will really latch onto, or maybe that they might not even notice first time through?
I definitely think. I think there's one point in the film. I mean, there's a bunch, but the one that stands out in my head is in the second sequence of the film. Red is he's in court, and there's a court reporter, and instead of drawing the picture of the courtroom, there's a bird that pecks, so he pecks the image in, and their depiction of the birds is that round circle, as those birds is what the game it looks like. So we thought it'd be kind of funny if that's how they saw themselves, it's simple kind of caveman drawings with these the round balls.
That's awesome. And in terms of settings, what were some of the biggest challenges that the film needed something that completely doesn't exist in the game?
Right. There was there's two islands. There's Bird Island and the Piggy Island. Which neither one of those really exist in the game. Where we wanted both islands to feel very different. So we took this utopia of birds. And they've never left the island at all. And we wanted the birds to have an affinity with that island. So if you look closely, some of the barks on the trees, or the feathers, or the flowers, they're inspired by bird feathers. So they have a bird feather motif to them.
Oh,
if you
cool.
look really close at the film. And then on Piggy Island, we wanted it just to feel like it was chaos, but fun chaos. It would be like a place you still wanted to go. It's not scary. They are the villains of the film, but we still wanted this place to be welcoming, and when you see it, you instantly smile.
That's awesome. Can you just walk us through sort of the process of working with the director in terms of literally building the look of the film and the ways in which your ideas mesh with those of the director and then the original creators too?
Yeah. So we had tons and tons of meetings, right? So we would usually the way it starts off is myself or somebody on my team will do a rough sketch or rough painting, and we'll present that to the directors and producers, and we'll talk about it. Say, hey, is this the character that you're looking for? Is this an environment that looks like it's going to fit with the world? So there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of trial and error, and then I think once you kind of figure out the visual language of the film, I think once we designed Bird Island and we realized that it was all organic and everything was made by the birds for the birds. We took naturalistic things that we as humans know how real birds make their nests, and we took those same things like twigs and everything, and that's how we built their world, their houses and their stores and Main Street and everything.
What else are you working on?
Right now I'm taking some downtime, and I'm working on some children's books, and hopefully, fingers crossed, for a sequel, Angry Birds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you worked on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I did.
Okay, so let's talk about Gigantic Food.
Gigantic Food. It was really fun film work.
Yeah? So were all of your sort of assignments for that movie in the script already? They said, make me a meatball, and you made a meatball? Or did you have any sort of this would look cool, let's do...
There was a lot of exploration. There's both. You start off with the script with usually and for the first Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, I designed characters. I was a character designer. So they would come to me as we're thinking about, the cameraman, Manny the cameraman,
right.
This is what we want, throw out a couple ideas, and then, he evolves. I throw out some thoughts, and I think that's the best form of storytelling comes from story and design on a parallel path. Story informs design, and then design informs story.
When you're doing something like character design, do you take into consideration the actor who's playing the role?
Definitely, yeah. So, for instance, Flint, who's the main character on Cloud Chance of Meatball, he was played by Bill Hader.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill is he's got this great voice, very animated when he talks and everything. So we wanted to push that design and push the mouth poses and the physical body poses. So you end up, some of his expressions actually end up looking like Bill.
what we learned from Angry Birds being made into a movie is that basically anything can be made into a movie.
Yeah.
So are there any pre-existing games, books, inanimate objects, anything that you think you would be a dream project that you could turn into a really cool, project designed?
Well, I would love to turn one of my children's books into an animated film. And a lot, the way I think about storytelling, it's very adaptable to film, and a lot of times a couple children's books I have coming out next year were conceived originally as animated ideas. I just couldn't sell them, and then I thought, why don't we turn them into a book, and I'll get that out there, and and then try to pitch it from there. But I'm hoping one day that one of my books will be able to get made as animated.
So pitch us the one that would be the best movie.
Okay, Mingo the Flamingo.
Okay.
Mingo is the first time he's taking a flight. He's taking his first flight with his family, and they're going to fly south. He gets caught in a storm and crash lands in Siberia. And when he wakes up, he has amnesia, so he doesn't know where he is or who he is. And it's all these Siberia farm animals find him, so he has to figure out who he is. And his memory slowly comes back, and he realizes that he's a flamingo, and then he has to try to fly home. But he tries to fly home, and he has a broken wing. So all the animals in the farm build him an airplane, and he's able to fly back home. And that's the children's book kind of version of it. Obviously, the film would be much more adaptable. Mm-hmm. But my good friend and I, who are writing this, Justin Thompson and I, we want the story to be much bigger.
So I went to school for computer animation, and kind of towards the end of my college career, I kind of realized I just enjoyed dealing with particles and simulations more than character animation and modeling. So from there, I kind of worked on some friends projects, because most of the people I went to school with were going for animation and modeling, so they always kind of needed help with effects. So it's kind of like I found my own little niche to kind of get into. And from there, I kind of worked at a couple of small studios, and then eventually ended up at Disney for a while. And then from Disney, I kind of went on to this company, Blue Sky Animation, that does like Ice Age and Horton Hears the Who. And then from there, I actually went down to Wedded Digital and worked on Avatar for 3 years.
Oh my God.
So that was 3 years of my life on that movie. Which was fun. It was great. It was amazing. Obviously it did well. And then from there, it was kind of like, do I want to keep going in film, or do I want to try out games? And I was kind of like, this game thing, it's kind of got more to grow,
right.
So to speak. It's kind of a newer medium, relatively. Film's been around for 100 years or more, and games have been around 20 to 30 years, so there's still a lot more to be explored, I feel like.
Were you a big gamer sort of before that?
Yeah, so I think anyone of my age has played games throughout their life. I definitely went through phases, like during college I really didn't have time for games, and even after that, when I'm crunching on a film or something like that, you really don't get much time to sit and play games. But what kind of happened was, after Avatar wrapped up, I actually gave myself a month off. Like, I had just been going hard for 3 years, and during that time I literally played games every day. And so I think that kind of influenced my decision to kind of get into games. And so it's nice now working at a game studio, where it's kind of encouraged to every now and then sit back and just play some games, make sure you're kind of keeping up with other people's games, and just getting into that world.
Do you have an area of effects or a type of effect that you sort of specialize in or prefer to do?
So I used to be a water technical director, so I just did water simulations.
Okay.
But now it's actually kind of nice being able to do a little bit of everything. Like, it was definitely fun, like doing water full time for a while, but working at Blizzard, we get magic effects, we get explosions, we get things falling apart. Anything you can think of, we get to do. So it's kind of nice being able to kind of like dip my toes in a little bit of all the effects. But anytime I get a chance to do kind of a cool liquid simulation, I still try to do that.
Have you ever been given sort of an assignment, or you see something does it come to you in script form, or how do you?
So it really kind of depends on the project. For the most part, they kind of already know what they want. Like the director will come to you and be like, hey, we need an explosion that happens here at this time, or we need like a magical effect that kind of looks like this game asset or kind of looks like this other thing. But then there's things like on Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls, I was fortunate enough to work on the soul-sucking effect that the character Malthael has. And with that, the director was like, hey, we need something that looks cool. He needs to rip out this guy's soul. But I don't want it to look like X, Y, and Z. He's like, I don't want it to be these things that I've seen before.
Dementors or whatever.
Yeah. So it was actually really cool that I pitched him this liquid soul-sucking effect. And that, once again, goes back to, me just wanting to do liquids sometimes. But it was kind of nice because I actually kind of got to help design it, too. It wasn't just like, here, do this, thing. So it was much more interactive.
Have you ever gotten someone asked you for an effect and you've been like, I have no idea how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised that it actually happens quite a bit. Like, there's the obvious effects that are like explosions or, rain or a waterfall or something like that, where you're like, okay, I know basically how I'm going to do this, But then there's times with like magic effects or certain force fields, energy fields that they're like, well, we kind of want to see it, but we kind of don't want to see it. Right. And you're like, okay, what is that? Or like, there's I didn't work on this, but there's another guy on my team for the last StarCraft one. There was an Archon forming, which it's kind of two characters merging together and forming one giant character. And they were kind of like, yeah, they just need to combine together. And he's like, okay. So that was a lot of brainstorming amongst the team, like what is this going to look like, what sort of steps are involved, what levels. So and that's one of the nice things about being on a team. We have about 15 people on our team, so we can always kind of bounce ideas off each other. If there's an effect that we're like, what is that? Sometimes you just go to the director and be like, what do you want to see? And sometimes he has an answer. Other times he's like, well, kind of like this, So it's a lot of feeling things out,
right. Working in visual effects, do you sometimes find you're watching a movie or playing a game or something and you almost can see through it in a way that's a little bit annoying?
Yeah. And actually, my wife hates me for this because there's times where I point those things out.
Oh,
and she's like, you've ruined certain movies for me.
No.
I was like, oh, well, sorry, it just bugged me. I had to say something. So there's definitely times where you're like, oh, that really wasn't a good simulation, or that wasn't composited in correctly, and you're like, oh wait, I'm supposed to be focusing on the story.
Right.
It's two different hats, and I try the first time I watch a movie to just shut off, the work mind, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Are there any sort of great effects that you can imagine up that you haven't gotten the chance to execute yet?
I mean, there's nothing off the top of my head that I haven't done that I'd like to do, but the nice thing is whenever we get a new story, sometimes we'll get it just in script form, sometimes we'll get storyboards, but generally when we get something, every time you're like, oh, we could do this, or we should try this, and we always have something that's going to cost 10 times the budget we actually have, and we always want to go bigger as effects artists, so we always kind of have to get reined in by production and things like that. So it's kind of an ever-evolving list of, oh, that would be cool if we tried this here,
right.
kind of thing.
In your opinion, what is the greatest effect executed in film or games history? It was the coolest, they shouldn't have been able to pull that off kind of thing.
Well, that's kind of tricky. There's certain things that for the time they shouldn't have been able to do,
right.
And there's certain things that even still, I don't know how they did it, kind of thing. So, you go back and you watch the first Jurassic Park, and you're like, this... I look at what else came out at that time, and I'm like, this shouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Or even going back to what's the name of the film? The Day After Tomorrow, where there's the giant flood that took out a whole city. I actually met the guy that did that flood, and he was my boss for a while. But at the time, I was like, I don't know how you have the computing power to even begin to approach that. But there's, a lot of the stuff that Christopher Nolan does now, where he's blending live action effects with 3D effects, that you're just kind of I still don't understand what they did there,
Right, yeah.
So there's definitely things out there that they get me, and I love it. It's refreshing. I get to be that guy that can leave my work hat off because I'm like, I don't know how they did that.
Right.
You know.